Just curious, what does your DVC guide do for you? Great question. And you're not the only one who asked this question. You're also not the only person who followed up with something along the lines of just wondering because I'm a DVC member and I've never talked to a guide since. So let's dig into it today. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Epcot. I know we were just here, but we're back. There's a lot to do, there's a lot to see. There are some updates, especially DVC related updates that I want to share with you, and some DVC related questions that we need to cover as well. And yeah, I know, more DVC. We've been talking a lot about DVC right now, but that's what's on my mind, so let's have a good day, answer these questions, and see what we can get ourselves into. I also chose Epcot today because not only do I love this park, but there are a lot of quiet spaces to kind of duck out and sit down for a minute and chat, so we're gonna take advantage of those today. First, let me start off by saying though that I am simultaneously surprised but also not surprised by how many of you have said that you've never had contact with your DVC guide. And honestly, I feel like this is a position that I've been in a lot recently where I'm like very surprised but also not. Very mixed emotions when it comes to so much right now. But like with so many things, not only here at Disney, but just in general, there seems to be a very different experience depending on when you got involved with that thing or when your experience with that thing started. So for me, it was the early 2000s. For so many of you, it may have been so much more recently. So that's always something to keep in mind when you have conversations like this. But I also think it's important to have these conversations so that we can get an understanding of what was lost or what might be shifting right underneath our feet so we can correct any problems. You know what I mean? Because you don't know what you got if you never knew you were supposed to have it. I feel like that's not how the phrase goes, but we're sticking with it today. Anyway, talk about quiet space that I kind of ducked into. This is that Coral Reef restaurant. There's a big open space here. I've never seen this too crowded, though I'm usually here during off times. And on the guide that Walt Disney World at least used to have for guests with cognitive disabilities, yes, that's like a whole section of their website, this is listed as one of the out of the way places that you can kind of, leave the crowd, decompress a little bit. And I mean, yeah, it's perfect. Though the park did just open not too long ago, but again, I've been here before, usually not too many people here. Anyway, like I said, this is also the Coral Reef. This is one of those places that I keep saying I want to eat at, and I haven't been here yet. Have you guys eaten here? I feel like this is one of those places that not a lot of people talk about. So we definitely have to give it a try. Let's take a look at the kids menu real quick. See what they've got. Any of this sound good to you? I mean, it is seafood. I like seafood. Also, it's a pretty cool environment in there that's very similar, in fact, to a place that I used to really love eating every time we were at the aquarium that we used to frequent during our time in Japan. So I am looking forward to going and checking that out. I know the Boo Crew's interested, so maybe we'll go together, but let me know if you've ever tried it, what you thought, and if you think it's worth our time. But okay, let's get back to this question of what my DVC guide has done for me. Because like I said, this has been like the question that I've been getting since we started talking about this DVC guide situation, which for those of you who aren't up to speed on this, of course you can go listen to the whole thing, but I'll give you a Cliff Notes version here. So I became a DVC member in the early 2000s. Like I mentioned, I had a guide who was fantastic, and then he retired. So when he retired, we were assigned a new guide. And since that new guide was assigned to us, our experience has completely changed. In fact, the experience we started having was very similar to the experience that you guys are saying that you're currently having, even though that's a stark contrast to the experience that we were having. Are you keeping up? Anyway, we knew that this guide might be new, so we wanted to give them some time to get themselves squared away, get their feet underneath them, like firmly planted. But as time went on, especially as we started reaching out to that guide, we weren't getting any information back from them. We weren't having any contact with them. Well, monorail's coming by. Gotta start our day off right. There it is. Perfect, right? And this became a problem for a few different reasons. Not only were we running into issues that weren't getting resolved, but it also was an issue when the new properties started coming online and becoming available for purchase, because we were considering buying a contract or two. We reached out multiple times to our guide to get more information, and they left us hanging. Anyway, we knew something needed to be done because we still have a couple decades left of this DVC thing. And so we went through the process, or at least started going through the process of trying to get information to make that happen, which was easier said than done. You know, I even got some comments from you guys who were like, oh, it's a simple process, which, let me just say, I am so glad that it is a simple process. And yes, it is a simple process. But the crazy thing, and the thing that was so frustrating and kind of misleading when it came to how difficult this was going to be, is that every time we went to DVC for help and explained the situation that we were in, we were met with, well, we'll reach out to your member guide to reach back out to you. And that never happened. So we were put in this tricky position where, even though we were trying to be like, what can we do about this? It was like the cycle, this never-ending cycle. So, you know, it's a tough situation to be in. But all right, let's make our way into the land. There's a quiet spot downstairs that I'd like to go hang out in for a bit, maybe have a drink. We'll chat a little bit about what my past experience was with DVC. All right, we've made our way into my quiet little corner of the land. It's not the most interesting, but it is quiet and out of the way. So like I just said, everything that we are currently experiencing is stark contrast to what our experience was from the moment we bought into DVC until our previous DVC guide retired. But prior to this situation, our experience with our DVC guide was, well, they were a salesperson. They would let us know about any opportunity that they had for us to spend more money, which is exactly what a salesperson does. I know that that's not everyone's cup of tea, but especially when you're interested in making a purchase, it's really nice when they reach out to you when that is the case. They were also always there to resolve any issues that might arise. So I guess you could say that they were like our designated Disney Vacation Club contact. And that's not to say that we would contact them anytime there was any problem, but if there was a problem that we couldn't resolve with relative ease, or a problem that was specific to DVC, we would have someone that we could contact. In fact, we could make direct contact with them and then get this issue resolved, or they could point us in the right direction in order to be able to resolve that issue. So a good example of this would be like the situation that we had over at the cabins at Fort Wilderness. This is the newest Disney Vacation Club property to open up, and we were able to stay there like within a few days of it opening, but we ran into some major problems, including electrical issues with the cabin itself, which had kind of a domino effect. We ran into problems with our golf cart because we ran into problems with the electricity. And the long and short of it is that it took us hours to resolve this issue. Of course, we talked about that in previous discussions, so I'm not going to go over it again, but this is an example of one of those times where I would have been able to call my Disney Vacation Club guide and be like, hey, we ran into some issues. The resort itself isn't helping us out despite making multiple attempts. Can you help us out? And generally speaking, that guide would then go ahead and not only help us out, but even follow up, maybe during that stay, maybe during a future trip, to just be like, hey, don't forget, if you have any issues like last time, you can contact me and we can work this out. Now, how often did that happen? Honestly, not very often at all. But it is something that we've had to do a few times since the early 2000s when we initially became members. Of course, it's been 2 handfuls of years, really, so it's not that bad, though recently we have seen a shift. But you know, they're there. You know they're there. And so you know that there is an option. There's a way to resolve issues that might arise if they do arise. But there are a lot of guides, mine included, my previous guide included, I should say, they would go a step farther. You know, they would reach out when there was an event that got added to the calendar. For example, you know how, was it last winter, they had a Hoop-de-Doo review special thing for DVC members only? That was an event that actually I griped about on social media. It was available to Disney Vacation Club members, but you had to have known about it. You had to have been scouring the website at just the right time, or you had to have a guide who was letting you know about these things, which is something that, again, some guides do, and ours would have been doing that. Hey, you know, there's this Hoop-de-Doo thing, I checked and it looks like you're gonna be down here during that time. Maybe you wanna sign up for that. Some guides, again, my previous guide included, would give you a call once you arrived, say hi, remind you that they're there. Some might send you an email ahead of your trip, like just making contact every now and again to let you know that they're there. If you have any questions, concerns, hey, maybe you wanna make a purchase. That's the experience that we used to have with our DVC guide, and the current guide that we have has made no contact at all. Even when we've reached out for information, even when we've reached out for help, which, yeah, all the other things are nice. The phone calls saying hi, welcome home are nice, but I think that the main concern for me is that fundamental bit. When I reach out, please contact me back. And that, again, is something that currently isn't happening for me and apparently isn't happening for you guys either, or at least a number of you. Now, Disney Vacation Club guides obviously have other responsibilities outside of just contacting their members. Yeah. They are, of course, sales representatives, so they do sales representative things. They go and do presentations and all that stuff that you would expect any other sales rep to do. So there's a lot of stuff that they have to do, but part of that is to stay connected with their members. Part of the job, or at least it was. And I mean, that's just a good sales technique anyway. The more valued the customer feels, especially when you're making such a expensive purchase, the more they're likely to purchase. You know, the better experience, the easier it is to resolve issues. Yeah, do I really have to do like a explanation of how this works? We all know how this works, right? Also popping in real quick to ImageWorks to check out the DVC Lounge. I know it's still not open, but they did put in a new sign. Also, there's a new piece of merch in here that I want to check out. So let's see if we can find it. So obviously still closed, but check out the new sign. The Imaginatrium. Interesting. I have no idea when that's going to open, but hopefully it's soon. All right, let's see. There's a new piece of merch. It's a tote bag. Will it be in here? I don't know. It might even be sold out at this point. Let's see. No, I don't see it yet. I don't think it's in here at all. All right, we'll keep an eye out. By the way, I've been noticing this new sign popping up. Fun finds under $25. So you could have this for $12. Wow. Or you could have this for red. This is $29.99. Mickey, that's not right. Also, I have one of these and I love it. Isn't this cute? I don't know how much this is. This is $14.99. So that's under $25. All right, moving on. Anyway, the long and short of it is your DVC guide should be doing something for you. At bare minimum, they should be in contact with you, especially when you try to get in contact with them. I mean, I don't really have much else to say other than that. I don't really want to drone on about this in particular, so let's find a shady spot for a second and get to your next question. Also, the leaping fountains are still off, which definitely makes me a little sad, but I can smell something from up here. It smells like summer and like firewood grilling. I don't know, but I want it. Probably not gonna get it today, but I will get it. Okay, so next question. A number of you, both in the comments and in private messages, were asking who my guide was. Some of you even throwing out some names. No one that was mentioned is my guide. So if you asked if that person was my guide, no, they're not. Now, here's the thing. I'm not gonna tell you who my guide was. And it's not because I wanna keep anything from you or anything like that, but I do think that there's a time to share certain information and there's a time to keep some things to ourselves, which is actually a great opportunity for me to share a little tidbit with you about how we do things over here so that we're all on the same page. Don't worry, it's not a bad thing. It's just an opportunity to talk about this, and I haven't had one yet, so. I'm not really a fan of keeping negative experiences that I've had, especially when those negative experiences are with a company, to myself. I mean, those of you who have been hanging out with me for quite some time know that I share pretty much everything with you. I'm open, honest, and sometimes that's a problem for some people. But my openness, my honesty, the information that I'm sharing with you, there's a function for all of it. I want you to, number one, avoid being in situations that you don't want to be in. I also want you to be safe. I want you to be comfortable when you travel, and I want you to be prepared. All of those things kind of fueling what I'm communicating to you and how I'm communicating it to you. You know, if I have a bad experience at a hotel, let's say, and it makes me feel unsafe, uncomfortable, all of those things, I want to tell you about it. I want to tell you, hey, I don't recommend this place. And I'm going to tell you what that place is. And I'm going to tell you exactly why I don't recommend it. Sometimes it's not that big a deal. And like, of course, you're going to make decisions on your own, right? So I'm going to give you details. Hey, I don't recommend this place, but I know you're going to make your own decisions. So be ready for this, this, and this to happen so you don't find yourself in the position, I was in. Honestly, I don't like when people don't do that. I don't like when they're like, oh, I'm at this hotel that I'm really not digging because they, you know, did this and I was uncomfortable, unsafe, they left me hanging, but I don't want to tell you because I don't want to have a bad relationship with them. Like, no, that's not how we do things here. But sometimes there are situations where I don't think that it's helpful to share the specifics, especially when we're talking about something like this. We're talking about someone in particular. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to share specifics with you, especially if, again, I feel unsafe, I feel uncomfortable, all of those things that I mentioned before. I'm going to tell you who that person is so that you can steer clear of that person, so that you know what to expect if you happen to be working with that person. But there's balance, right? Like, there's balance in all things. And in this case, as negative as my experience has been, I haven't felt any of those things that makes me feel like it's necessary to put this person specifically out on the internet and be like, they suck. Because who knows, maybe they don't suck. Maybe they're really great for someone else, you know? So I think it's more helpful to let you know all the things that we're talking about now, to give you the information about what you need to know in order to get these situations resolved, which we've pretty much done, at least up until this point. Long and short of it being, you just have to request a new guide, and then, you know, a new guide will contact you and you go through the process with them, basically like send an email. It's pretty straightforward once you know that that's what you need to do. But I feel like that's where the solution lies, as opposed to telling you the actual name of the guide. So that's where we're at. And I hope you can understand that. And I hope that you understand what it is that I'm trying to say here, because it's been a little bit hard for me to figure out how to articulate this. You know, like, I want you to know that I'm not going to keep anything from you, especially if I don't have a positive experience. But also, I think that I have a responsibility to not be reckless and like finger wag if it's just not a positive experience as opposed to being a really bad experience. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's tricky. It's tricky doing this thing that we're doing here. Also though, while I'm thinking about it, I appreciate each and every one of you who reached out recommending your member guide because you think yours is awesome. I appreciate that. Now, by the time that most of you made your recommendations, we had already been on the path to finding a new guide that I'm very excited about. I'll tell you a little bit more about that here in a bit, but we're ducking into Canada far and wide. Nice place to cool off for a little bit. And I like this show. It's the song. The song does it for me. Anyway, like I mentioned the other day, I did get in contact with someone, and I'm currently in the process of officially switching over. Like, I did everything that I needed to do, but it's just a time thing. And I'm really excited about this new guide because they actually worked with my original guide. So I'm happy, you know. Of course, like I mentioned before, we got to see how it goes. Only time will tell, but so far, I feel good about the change, even though, very much like one of you had said, it never feels good to have to do something like this, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not the type of person who likes to make waves, but I also do think that we have to stand up for ourselves, you know, so there's always a balance, but yeah. I'm happy, and I hope those of you who have made these changes in the past as well are also happy with the change, because I know there are a number of you out there who said that you have had to change your guide. So, you know, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're all making out all right, you know? But all right, the last thing we need to talk about is contracts, specifically having multiple DVC contracts. So I got this question from one of you a little while ago, and I haven't had the chance to answer it yet. This seems as good a time as any regarding having multiple Disney Vacation Club contracts, because I've said in the past that I have multiple DVC contracts, and you wanted to know why. Like, what is the purpose? What is the function of multiple contracts? Oh my goodness, guys, I see a hidden Mickey right behind you. Let's take a look. This is one of those natural ones. Can you see it? That really does look kind of like a hidden Mickey, doesn't it? Sorry, Mr. Lizard. Hidden Mickey in the wild. Okay, back to business. So I have multiple contracts. I've mentioned this before. I have a beach club right down this way is one of my home resorts. I also have Saratoga Springs. So that gives me a grand total of 2. Now, it isn't really all that unique for Disney Vacation Club members to have multiple contracts. And I mean, there could be any number of reasons that a DVC member goes this route. So you might want to kind of get into DVC because it seems like a good idea, buy a certain number of points, and then later you realize you want more points because your family has grown or you take longer vacations or whatever the case. Sometimes new properties become available, and so you'd also like to have that as a home resort because there are some perks with having a home resort. Basically, you get like first dibs at making reservations at that resort, which is one of the reasons that we always say buy where you want to stay. But also, depending on the resort of your choosing for that second contract or third or fourth or whatever, that can extend out the length of your membership, particularly if it's a new resort. So for example, you know, I've got like 20 years left or something like that on, let's say, Beach Club. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but if I have 20 years left on Beach Club and I want to be a Disney Vacation Club member for, you know, 50 years total, I could buy a contract at, let's say, the new cabins that are going to expire in 50 years. So my membership will continue on even after that first membership or that first contract expires. So that's another reason that people might go this route. Of course, it depends on your choices when it comes to buying more contracts. If you buy a contract at, let's say, Beach Club, so you buy a contract at Beach Club right now, it's still going to end when my contract would end. So that's not going to extend your membership out in the same way as if you bought a contract at the Polynesian, for example. You know, that's going to end in whatever date. Maybe that's not a good example because I don't know the specifics on that, but I'll use the cabins again, the Fort Wilderness cabins. That's also one of the reasons that people might buy direct versus buying resale, you know, like the lengthening of your membership. But again, there's so many different routes that you can go, and of course, so many different reasons that you might have multiple contracts. For us, Beach Club was the first contract we purchased because, I mean, timing being what it was, also location. Beach Club is also the first resort that I ever stayed at, ever, back in the 90s. So it's kind of a obvious choice. Years later, Saratoga Springs entered the chat, and we wanted a place near what was at the time downtown Disney, so it just made sense to add another contract. Also, look at these fountains. Looks so terrible, but I'm not going to focus too much on that today. Also, by that point, we had gotten in the groove of DVC. We had liked it. We saw how it worked for us. We saw how much money it saved for us, and we knew that we'd be able to maybe bring more family members with us when we traveled and do more, get bigger rooms and stuff. So we needed more points in order to make that happen. So we got more. And, you know, here we are with 2 contracts. And we haven't really felt the need to get any more up until this point, but there are some places we've been interested in, and that kind of brings us full circle to the problem that we've been having with our DVC guide, you know? So yeah, there are a lot of different reasons that you might opt to have multiple Disney Vacation Club contracts. Just depends on, I mean, so many things, your family dynamic, what it is you want to do with your Disney Vacation Club membership. Of course, there are so many different ways that you can go about getting multiple contracts. So that's why so many of us talk about having multiple contracts. And it's much less likely that a Disney Vacation Club member is going all in right out the gate, just because, I don't know, it's just not the way that people usually do it. So while you could buy however many points you want to right at the start, only at one home resort, most of us opt for multiple contracts, multiple places. It gives us more options as well. So that's why you usually hear people talk about it like that. By the way, can we take a second to just appreciate this space real quick? The detail in the Morocco Pavilion is just absolutely gorgeous. It's one of the reasons that so many of us, myself included, feel so disheartened by the updates that have taken place outside, because like this is hand-carved tile. You know, it's just amazing. And then step outside and it's like the discount bin over at Home Depot. Just very, very sad. Not something that a lot of us are happy about. But all right, I think that about does it. for today. I've gotten to all the questions that I wanted to answer, and I've hopefully explained some of these things well. You know, we do our best while we're wandering around over here. As always, I want to hear what you guys have to say, not only about the member guide situation and, you know, my experience versus maybe what your experience has been, but also when it comes to having multiple contracts as a Disney Vacation Club member. Of course, I did reach out to our channel members to see what their reasoning for having multiple contracts has been over the years, and their experience is very similar to ours. So of course, I'm curious to see what you guys have to say as well. So let us know in a comment down below. But for now, I think that's about it. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'm looking forward to hearing what all of you guys have to say, and I hope that you have a fantastic day wherever it is you are. Until next time, guys. Bye.